Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Nash County Board of Education Committee meeting to order. The first committee that will be presenting today is the Administrative Services and Operations Committee. It will be facilitated by Vice Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Washington, and the committee chair will start with absent. We'll go through the committee meeting before us. I'll establish a form. I'll do a quick roll call with Dean Edwards. Right, Franklin Lamb. Thomas Bullock.
I'm here.
Dr. Donovan Davis. So we do have one first item on the agenda is approval of minutes in the September 7th meeting. But then we have a minute to review. We have first by Franklin, second Dean, any questions, comments, discussion of the hearing? All those in favor, please say by sign aye. The next item on the agenda is for information purposes. When detailed information that we'll probably be discussing many meetings, then again next week. Opposed to just moving through it quickly, but probably take the time to go through the land training for the further update the superintendent and his cabinet. So with that, the doctor.
So what we're going to do this evening is Mr. Ward is going to present the plan. He's going to go over this document. And if you're going to have any questions with each department head will be here if there's any questions about this. This would be the plan. So far, we think it's 99.9% done. We had a very good conversation Thursday with Edcom Cabinet Superintendent. We're going to present this plan, and Edcom is going to present their plan tomorrow to the county commission for our joint meeting. So we want to make sure that you saw the plan, got numbers, got links, and Mr. Ward, if you can come up here, and we will open this document up and go from there. This is this one? Yeah, okay, well, it's confidential, but they have a copy of it at their we can show it anyway tomorrow or let it go. Okay.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. For a moment there, it felt like I was at the free throw line and someone put me on ice. Yeah, the pleasure. Yes, as Dr. Ellis stated, this document, we hope and we pray that it's pretty much 99% complete at this point. Of course, as I stated the last time in our last meeting, this is a working document. So throughout the process, we will continue to add information as it becomes available to us. So just starting with page 1 is pretty much the executive summary, pretty much outlining what this plan is about, giving a little historical background of the 2 counties as we're went through the consolidation, coming together, and now the demerger over 30 years ago. Please feel free at any point during the presentation to ask questions. If you have a question about anything that you may see. The next page, page 2, of course, is our forward statements talking about the plan, the agreement within itself, and the key responsibilities and the roles of each of our department heads, the superintendent, and also our departments as well. The last paragraph talks about the detailed checklist that that's provided within the plan in terms of how we're going to relinquish assets and other property over to Edgecombe County Public Schools. Page 3 lists the core responsibilities of each member of the team or each department of this team. Starting with office of the superintendent, the roles and responsibilities of each. And that goes on to page 4. Over to page 5, you will see an outline of the team members and committee members, subcommittee members. And also it's broken down as subcommittees, research and development committee on page 6. Community organization facilitator, legal support that's given to us. Also, we've listed the Nash County Board of Education members by district, and also the Nash County Board of Commissioners by district as well. As those will be the ones approving this document, along with Edgecombe County. Page 7, as you can see, you have numbers on this page, which list the overall impact of what this is going to mean for Nash County Public Schools once those schools and students transfer over to Edgecombe County. As it stands right now, I will point out at the disclaimer at the bottom, this reflects 321. We'll update this as we get closer to submitting the plan on November the 15th. So as it stands right now, those are the current number of students that are located in our elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. And we can see in the third column, I'm sorry, that you will see the number of students that are currently domiciled in Edgecombe County, the impact those students possibly leaving our district, and what will happen demerger. Those are the post demerger numbers in terms of the number of students that will be left in our district once the demerger has taken place. Page 8 will list the current staff members that are currently in the facilities. At Baskerville, you'll see there are 50 employees, D.S. Johnson, 54, Fairview, 49, J.W. Parker, 38, and the Teacher Resource Center. There are currently 28 employees over there. The school nutrition building, there's 0 there because they have moved out of that building. They're now located over here on this campus. On page 9, we'll list the fiscal impact, just some numbers there. Again, these numbers are not current. Just letting you know what the current budget was for each and any money that we will relinquish over to Edgecombe County as well. So you can see federal dollars, current budget, there are none right now. So forth and so on. So this is just a little outline of that. Again, subject to change. Page 10 lists the overall description of like teachers in our district by position or by dollar amount, also by PCR code, and this is school-wide at this current state. This is school-wide at this point, and then over to in the far right-hand column, you will see the number of reduction of those positions once this plan takes place. Moving on to page 11. Here again is another staffing plan for each one of those schools that will transfer over to Edgecombe County.
Would you like to save your presentation or did you say ask questions as you go along?
I can take portions of it. Yes, sir.
Well, I do have questions. back on that page, we just sponsor there, page 11. of that thing. Have we, seen it kind of as to what happened?
That discussion is taking place with our HR directors in both counties. They're currently working on that, and I will yield to Ms. Wallace if she would like to any input on that. That is,
You will. You want, okay.
That's the greatest concern I get from all of
It is, good afternoon, everybody. It is a big concern. I did meet with, my counterpart in Edgecombe County last Friday. And they will be able to share this information with the staff that attends the meeting this Wednesday. Their plan is to just have a generic applicant stage for them. They can go in and complete the application. They will then be able to be considered for hire based on the vacancies in those schools that they have available there. With that being said, there still wasn't a clear thought pattern in terms of what those schools would look like, how they would be laid, but right now they were contemplating leaving them as is. We do have to go back and forth with some additional information in terms of the type of licenses that the staff has, things of that nature, but we will finalize that this week. And we do still have vacancies as well, so we can place those remaining ones that want to remain in Nash and a lot of those vacancies based on the certification levels. Okay, you're welcome.
okay, I think I left off page 12. All right, page 12. Page 12 is just outlining some sources of funding right now in terms of Title I funds by those codes and extra funds by those codes as well. Ms. Wallace is working on that as well, but these are some numbers that were given to us early on. And these numbers, again, may be subject to change as she continues to finalize the fixed asset description appreciation. As you can see at the bottom down there, that is a link to the federal asset depreciation schedule, and also to the federal equipment. That will also be included in an appendix at the end once we submit the hard copies, but you should have access to that link, providing a very detailed description of those items that are listed. Moving on to page 13. This pretty much outlines the process in terms of our engagement with the community, student, and family engagement, as we will be, Ms. Helen Louise Finch will be setting up meetings, or has set up meetings throughout the process of engaging our parents in the community in this process. Page 14 will outline the student transition process. In terms of student transfers, listed in there is a timeline, a tentative student transfer timeline for the merger by month. Just pretty much listing some initiating some meetings around the district with our families. Also, in terms of how we will communicate to our families the transfer process and any changes that will take place regarding students that may be grandfathered or relinquished to Edgecombe County. And this is by month all the way up into 2024. It's outlined that process. Moving on to page 17, which brings us to our next heading, security, safety and security of the buildings. That is pretty much referring to any safety equipment that will be housed in our buildings at that time, how that will either remain in those school buildings, or it will be purchased by Edgecombe County Schools. Our transportation department, and this pretty much speaks to the number of buses that will be relinquished to Edgecombe County at the time of June 30th, 2024. And so that pretty much talks about how that process will take place as well. Yeah, that, well, it's not listed, but it's listed as a federal asset. But There, one is, the one, I believe is Parker Middle is a federal asset, so that would be listed in the, I mean, that asset. That I refer to. He asked about the e-ball machine. In Parker.
Now, don't they have e-ball at any point?
They are, I think in the process of implementing Evolve.
For that particular one that's being listed by item, has that particular one already been purchased?
No,
So
not, you mean by us or by them?
through us, because of us being on the quadrennial year.
Yeah,
payment plan.
we've already purchased it.
For those checks.
Yes. So if Edgecombe wanted that particular machine, they would have to pay the remaining balance on it, which would be about, I think, $75,000 approximately. Yeah. And I said balance is, it's not a balance, but it would taken away approximately $25,000 from this first year of use. We paid approximately $100,000 for over a 4-year period. So that would leave approximately $75,000.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay, page 18 just continues with the bus outline. Mr. Barrett, he has been
It
in
will
contact
be.
with the transportation director over there in terms of what buses will be relinquished to Edgecombe County, the number of buses and the type of buses as well. Our technology department, Mr. McQueen has been in contact with their technology director as well. Technology equipment that will remain will be purchased. Some of that equipment is were purchased with federal dollars as well. So Mr. McQueen has given a detailed list of those assets that will be required to remain or those that will be purchased by Edgecombe County. Page 20 is pretty much going to be detailed in that asset list as well. So pretty much those are just some numbers to outline where they are right now in terms of dollar amount. But those items are listed in detail in the asset table. And examples it gives you for student Chromebooks, teacher laptops, and interactive boards down at the bottom, very bottom. And that brings us to the conclusion here, just pretty much recapping where we've gone and where we've been right now and going forward together in this process. So, and again, we're just happy that we're at this point right now, 99% complete. Hopefully we have this ready to birth. We will have it ready to birth before 11:15. Thank you.
Glad to recognize the that has questions for detail. There is a lot here about what we're trying to do with what having to do on the other side. So, all from it.
Mr. Johnson, could you turn your mic on? It's off. All he said was off. So just talking.
Probably not hanging very close enough. So, again, questions. And, now that we have Mr. Ward and Cabot here in front of us in regard to the demerger. Do you want to, I'm sorry, Evelyn?
Well, it's just running through my brain, so I might do that.
Right.
Look at this.
Page.
Okay. The dollar amount. Let's see. What happened? Yeah, it went first. The devices and so forth were all purchased with federal dollars. Is that correct?
The word all, we'll make sure that's correct. All is correct. All.
Which is $513,192, along with the amount of other So,
But you can write.
for lack of a better word.
Right.
Thank you. Um, when is it? Yeah. It's not. holy. That. Because, you know, it's something that we enjoy. Um, yeah.
Our superintendent, he's talking with their superintendent, so I'll yield to you, Dr.
So I think right now, that's what we've been talking about. We had a discussion on Thursday. If you go and click, and I know Wayne can probably show this, there's a big inventory list. It just doesn't have computers. There's other items that they're there. Pretty high dollar amounts. So that's the conversation we're having with EdgeCom right now. So we felt like they needed to know this is what it's going to cost. So I think EdgeCom figuring out the county commissioners and other items. I think tomorrow when we present both plans, we're going to present the inventory list to both sides. And then they have to decide how they're going to do this. If EdgeCom does not want to purchase those items, we have to get those items. So right now, it sounds like EdgeCom would like to purchase those things, so we don't want the kids without this stuff. So I think it's a conversation between the superintendent, but more it's a conversation with county commissioners, because this is where the money. But you're right, we had discussed, we knew when the inventory list came out, it was gonna be a discussion. We will see.
I have to work.
Hang on one second. Evelyn,
Yeah.
you can, Donald.
All right, I'm sitting out of place, forgive me, please. But my question regarding Title I equipment, 'cause these are Title I schools, are they not?
Right.
So I know in years past, it was very strict as where the equipment, be it a computer, whatever, if it was Title I dollars, it had to follow that school or that student. Will we be able to revert some of the Title I back to other Title Is in our system or not? Would that even be a possibility?
Just follow up and ask the question, but remember now, those schools continue to.
I know,
They're gonna be
I
Title
know.
I, they just be Nash County.
Right, I realize that, so I'm wondering, does the Title I stay with Nash or is it something that they can?
Yes, ma'am. It will have to be disseminated among other Title I schools in our district. Mhm. You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I was just going to ask Dr. Ellis if you could just walk us through a timeline. I mean, what gets us from today to November 15th, I guess, and what those next steps are going to look like.
So those are our plans for, especially when we get with EdgeCom on Thursday, we're gonna present both draft plans tomorrow to the county commissioners and our joint meeting. They have EdgeCom has a meeting at DS Johnson on the 27th. We're gonna present this plan to the full board on the 2nd of October. Then on the 9th, we're gonna present this plan to the county commissioners. All boards are gonna meet on the 16th. And I'm assuming that night is when, we would have a decision to make, either we want to continue to review this, because we still have about 3 weeks to really look at it again, both boards can look at both plans. And then, we could easily vote on our November board meeting to decide if we're gonna vote on the plan. It sounds like all 4 boards have to agree. So we've got to figure out a time, once EdgeCom, the commissioners vote, and ours vote, and we can at one time sign these documents, because if you notice on this award document, there's 4 signatures for chairman to sign. And then basically on the 15th of November, I will deliver those plans, well, one plan to district, to. I think we'll get more information tomorrow, the county commissions, as to when they like to vote all at once, or do separate boards vote November. We can determine that.
Thank you very much.
Question.
Bill?
Yeah, Dr. Ellis, good evening. Sorry if I can't be that person. But I was in a human relations committee with the city of Rocky Mount on Wednesday. And there's a lot of questions that came up regarding the merger from, not necessarily from Nash side, but from Edgecombe side and all the stuff that's going on through that process. Is it possible that, I know a lot of effective communication goes out through neighborhood watch committees and associations. And we know what the turnout rate was when you and your team presented at the other night or a few weeks ago, very low. Are those committee meetings with the joint commissioners open or closed, or can we send a representative from the Human Relations Committee to disseminate that information, or presidents from the homeowners association whose districts are being impacted?
Well, I believe that those will be open meetings, the one in October. Our session will be open, the county commissions on the 9th will be open.
So do we have that information, are those dates posted at our website?
Yes, Ms. Finch has posted all this on the website, on the demerger landing page, I believe.
Mhm.
And I think we've, almost sure we've met with Edgecombe to make sure our dates don't coincide with theirs, so it's pretty, their website kind of mirrors ours because we wanted to make sure we were kind of telling the same story.
Well, we know we can't touch all the bases, but as many as we can to inform the people as far as who's being impacted. We know there's not a lot of participation in this process, and it won't be until the end results when they finally realize this is what's going to happen, and a whole lot of hands going to go up and say, I didn't know anything about it. So what we're trying to do from a human relations side is make sure that information gets out to the respective community leaders so they can talk through that process as well.
I agree, Mr. Sharp, and I do think that Edgecombe will have some, probably when their plan is out and they can determine where those students are going to be in school, and they begin those meetings, I think after this plan is done, the December, the January is where it really starts, where we get that communication piece out. But I agree with you. We're gonna have to make sure we use all types of media to get this information out.
Anything else, Mr. Sharp?
No, I think that does it for right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Zach? Are we sending out calls or emails to the parents of these students who will be affected by the demerger?
So we individualized, sent those to the last meeting we had to those Edgecombe, those Nash County students affected, Edgecombe, we sent them our list. We are, you know, we've done more than.
That, you could, Mr. Edwards.
Thought it's in comparison, how close is Edgecombe to having a plan that we can see?
They're pretty close. I think when we met on Thursday, they solidified about those, they mimicked what ours was. So we want to make sure we had the same template. On Thursday, they shared it with us. We're gonna meet again Friday. We're hoping tomorrow their plan will come out for their commission. So they will finally show that. We show ours. So I'm pretty sure they're out there.
Dr. Ellis?
Yes, sir.
Just to comment on what Dean said, I thought it was a great question. But Dean, I would encourage every board member to attend one of the Edgecombe informational output they give, because it is similar to what we do, and there's a more participation with those folks from Edgecombe when Edgecombe County presents their information. So that will give us some type of, or give the board more of an insight as far as what's going on both sides and not just in Nash.
Steve, are you good?
Yes, sir.
You do. All right. Anything else, any other comments before we kind of step off from the merger? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Bullock.
Tuesday night, whatever night. My nights are running together right now. But at the meeting the other night and, Fairview, one of the things that I got the impression of was that the parents who live in Nash County, who have kids going to school in Edgecombe County right now, don't understand that their children will be assigned to a school in Nash County. And I think that's one of the things we need to make sure that they understand. Because that was from some of the questions we got, because they think because they are at the school in Edgecombe, that they are affected that way. So we could just make sure that it's understood that if you live in Nash County, your child is actually will be attending an Nash County school, not an Edgecombe.
And I think that's where we have a twofold plan. We get this one done in November, December becomes the timeline where NC State shows us where those 454 kids will be attending based on their survey. And then we start to write that conversation. Well, that's the point. Well, that's a good question.
I think that brings us to the end of the merger, unless there are any other items to raise. If not, it's not an agenda item, but for the admin and operations committee, we were going to ask Dr. Ellis for an update on the RFP for board council.
So right now, Ms. Wallace presented the detailed RFP process to the board last month. Now, based on the legal services, I'm going to email the existing contract we have with the legal services for everyone. Dr. Washington is going to phone the board to determine if you would like to put this in a business item on the board to vote on RFP process for legal services. That'll be the decision. Dr. Washington. Okay. But I will send you the contract and RFP process, and then she will see if we can put it.
I have one more comment.
Yes,
on
ma'am.
that. With all of the legal things that we have, that we are going through now, is now a good time for us to be trying to switch attorney while we have so many legal matters going forth right now. I have no objections to looking toward a new attorney. But I think we need to consider very seriously the situation we find ourselves in right now before we jump to somebody new, because we don't want to be left out there without someone who is familiar with all the things we got going on. So I can tell you right now, Madam Chair, I would not be in favor of changing attorneys at this moment. Just for the record.
Yeah, Dr. Washington.
So I share those, I echo those sentiments, Mrs. Bullock, and I have made those concerns known. And Vice Chair Clinton and I have had a conversation, and his viewpoint is that, you know, sometimes you do need to shop to make sure that boards are in a good position. And I agree that you need to do that, but I definitely echo the sentiments regarding what we have in our play at the time. And so I have to publicly put that on the record.
Certainly valid point. Look at this. Any other questions, comments?
I do have a comment. I want
Back.
We get to the mic. Or-
All right, I wanted to agree with Ms. Bullock. I don't think this is the right time to try to support that. It's just like you have an insurance policy, you have an accident. You don't supposed to be looking for an insurance thing, and you have an accident, you need to handle that first. Once you clear that up, then it makes sense to look at other options.
Thank you, Zach. All right, I think that should wrap it up for us without any other comments or questions. Hearing none, having none, can I get a motion to approve the admin and operations committee?
So,
We have a motion and a second, all those in favor, or vote aye, likewise, we're adjourned, thank you very much.
thanks, Lane.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Mr. Denton. Board members, if you want to come take your seat before we call the next meeting. The next meeting is the policy committee. Ms. Evelyn Bullock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to possibly put the committee to order and for the record. I would like to make sure we have quorum. Mr. Gray.
Here.
Mr. Dutton. Here. Mr. Edwards.
Here.
Ms. Thomas Bullock. And I am here. So we do have a quorum established. Thank you so much for being present for this meeting this evening. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes from our last meeting as presented. If there are no questions, then all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. I think that was Mr. Dutton and Ms. Thomas Bullock, and I am an aye, so that is the majority. The next item on our agenda is our policy for tonight. And for that, I will call on Mr. Weber. Did I get your name right? Yeah, okay.
Good evening, committee members. So you have a number of different policies for review tonight that come from the School Boards Association. These proposed revisions relate to Senate Bill 49, which is generally known as the Parents' Bill of Rights. It's a new bill with various sections that most of which became effective on August 16th of this current calendar year. The bill itself, you've probably seen it in the news, it's rather extensive in its scope, and I've been consulting with district leadership on implementation. But pertinent to this committee, the bill requires school boards to take a number of different policy actions. Some of that involves adopting new policies or new provisions in your policies, and it also requires changes to some of your existing policies. And I'll do something a little bit different here. Instead of scrolling through them, what I'll do is just kind of walk through some of the new requirements in the law as they relate to your policies, and then open up the floor for questions about the proposed revisions. So one of the first sections in the Parents' Bill of Rights, it requires school boards to adopt policies that address a wide range of topics related to parent involvement and parent responsibilities in schools, including teacher-parent cooperation related to homework, and providing information about various things such as the processes for instructing or objecting to instructional materials, and also providing information about things like student clubs and extracurricular activities. Those particular policy provisions are the most extensive that the bill requires, and those are mostly captured in your policy 1310 and the School Board Association's revisions to its model policy 1310. One final note on those with the policies related to parental involvement, those do require some sort of prior consultation with parents, teachers, administrators, and community partners. The law does not define what constitutes consultation. Some districts are convening task forces, parent groups, and other groups. Some are sticking with their usual process of first and second read and posting the proposed revisions to their website and including an email address or some other form for individuals, whether they're parents, teachers, administrators, or community partners to submit written feedback. We think both of those, are certainly within the bounds of the law. There are some school districts who could very well use their public comment period as the consultation piece. So there are a lot of different options for how to satisfy that particular requirement. The second thing in the Parents' Bill of Rights that has a policy impact is it imposes deadlines on principals for responding to certain requests for information from parents. And there are certain timelines within which principals need to respond. The policy implication there is that the school board has to adopt a procedure for essentially appeals if there are concerns with the response or the timeliness of a response. Those changes are also contained in the NCSBA revisions to its model policy 1310. The third thing that the Parents' Bill of Rights requires with a policy impact, it requires governing bodies to adopt procedures requiring annual notice to parents about the healthcare services that are offered at their children's schools and a means for providing consent for any specific service, as well as the availability of certain remedies for parent concerns. And another requires governing bodies to adopt procedures requiring advance notice to parents on an ongoing basis of several things. The first are the student well-being questionnaires for health screening forms in grades K through 3. The second, any changes in services or monitoring related to a child's mental, emotional, or physical health or well-being. And the third is prior notice before changes are made to the name or pronoun used to refer to students in school records and by school personnel. So again, that has a policy impact, and that boards are required to adopt procedures for those things. It also requires governing bodies to adopt procedures that require staff to encourage children to discuss issues related to their physical, mental, or emotional well-being with their parents, and or to facilitate discussion of those issues with parents. And I promise I'm going to be done soon. 6, it requires governing bodies to adopt procedures for parents to express concerns regarding certain issues in the law, particularly the notices around things like changes to names or pronouns and certain other issues in a specific section of the law. If the concern is not resolved within 30 days, then there are appeals that the law creates to the State Board of Education and or to court. And the last provision with a specific policy implication, the Parents' Bill of Rights requires at least 10 days notice in advance parental consent, whether written or electronic, for all protected information surveys that are administered to students. That particular provision mirrors an existing federal law called the PPRA. It basically creates a state version of it. So your current student surveys policy addresses the federal requirements, and we need to have some changes in order to comply with these new state requirements. So these are just some of the many impacts of Senate Bill 49. Again, the NCSBA has done the lion's share of the work reviewing its policy manual and proposing revisions to ensure compliance with the new legal requirements. Again, most of those are contained in the NCSBA Model Policy 1310-4002, which is the parental involvement policy. That policy has nearly doubled in size, and you can see a number of different revisions and red lines there. The other policies that are impacted, it's your policy 3210. That's your parental inspection of an objection to instructional materials policy. Policy 3540, which is your comprehensive health education program policy. Policy 4335 has a change in it related to reporting any criminal activities or alleged criminal offenses related to a child. That particular notice requirement has expanded. And you can see in the policy itself how that's changed. Where prior to the Parents' Bill of Rights, schools were required to provide notice only for certain criminal offenses. The Parents' Bill of Rights requires notice of any criminal offense. Policy 6120, that's your student health services policy. There is now a prohibition on instruction in grades K-4 for certain particular topics. And so there is a revision to that policy to ensure compliance with the new statutory prohibition. And policy 7300, staff responsibilities, has a small change in it that requires or prohibits staff from supporting students hearing information, discussing certain issues with their parents. So like any NCSBA policy, they can be adopted as is. School boards are not required to make any changes other than in policy 1310. There's a section at the end where there is community specific information that needs to be inserted. I think that's been bolded or highlighted or something. The NCSBA model policy where a district needs to identify community resources, community supports. Our office has reviewed, we've identified 3 policies where we have layered on some additional proposed revisions. Those are, of course, optional. The purpose of those revisions, if a board chooses to adopt them, is to build some specificity and structure into 3 of the policies, particularly policy 1310, and also to give some clarity to the proposed changes from the NCSBA. I think in your board meeting materials, you have both a version of the 3 policies that we've added to policy 1310, policy 3210, and policy 4720. I believe you have the NCSBA's proposed revisions and then separate attachments that layer on proposed revisions from our office. The color of the red lines seems to vary depending on what computer I use to open it. So I believe there are some notes also on Assembly that say my revisions or our office's revisions are in red. That might not actually be the case depending on what it looks like on your screen, but I've tried to highlight them so you can see what we have also proposed. And again, most of our office's proposed changes are in policy 1310. And what we try to do is just build some specificity around the various complaint processes that establish internal appeals for certain things in order to help them align more with a board standard grievance policies. So there's more clarity and certainty for both the school staff who have to participate in those particular appeals, as well as parents who are taking advantage of those particular appeal opportunities, and for the board members, as well as there are several items that come to you. I am at the committee's discretion in terms of happy to scroll through each of these, happy to take questions. I think the key is really just with your policy 1310, that particular policy does require some sort of consultation. And I'm happy to work with administration on developing a way to do that while complying with the law. Again, there are a lot of different options.
Jason,
Oh, I should, sorry, very quickly, I'm sorry to interrupt, the budget bill that became, well, that passed the General Assembly, the governor, as I understand it, said he will allow it to become law without his signature. It did have a bit of an impact on the Parents' Bill of Rights provisions. There have been some news reports indicating that the budget delays implementation of the entire Bill of Rights until January 1st. That's not accurate, so it delays implementation of only certain provisions within the Parents' Bill of Rights. For example, the policies around parent involvement, those, instead of a deadline, instead of boards having to adopt them as soon as possible, the effective date for that is now January 1st. Again, with the way the School Boards Association did their changes, they're pretty much combined in policy 1310. So the board could certainly parse out some of the provisions that could be delayed, but you could also certainly proceed.
I have a question for you, Jason. You have actually gone through all these policies.
Yes.
And so I just want to verify that because I had checked them as you were going through. Do we need to try to remove, if I can get enough votes, to remove 1310 for additional scrutiny and discussion between your office and the administration? Or can we go ahead and move that these policies be recommended to the full board based on the information that you've just given us? How would we do that? The other policies, I think, are clear cut, but 1310 is the one I think you said needed more discussion. Is that correct?
Well, yes, so 1310 requires consultation. So some
Between
boards-
you and the administration?
consultation between the, well, it's consultation on behalf of the district with certain groups, including parents, teachers, administrators, and community organizations.
Before we can
Before
approve it?
adoption. So some school boards have, most have the standard first and second reading procedures.
And we do.
Some boards have decided to waive the second reading for all of their policies or these proposed revisions other than 1310, knowing that they have to consult with regards to 1310. Other districts have, sent all of the policies through their standard first and second reading process. There's really no right or wrong way to do it. And with 1310 in particular, that is the policy that requires some sort of consultation with those particular groups. So if that required additional consideration by staff or by the board, there certainly would be enough time to provide feedback, whether it's to the superintendent or to me.
Okay, so normally, we would recommend approval and these policies lay on the table for 30 days, which would give us that time for that consultation. So with that being said, would that not be sufficient then for policy 1310 for that 30-day period?
I think it certainly gives enough time for consultation. Again, that term's not defined. So if the
Okay.
board, for example, or the district decided to post, for example, policy 1310 with the proposed revisions on the website and to create an email address or to have any and all feedback submitted directly to Dr. Ellis, you could certainly do that. Some districts have identified a particular person who is receiving that kind of feedback. And again, there's no clear requirement that it be a certain amount of time, 30 days could certainly be sufficient. I would argue that would apply.
Well, then with that being said, Is there a motion, other question first? Then I have what? Well, then, with that being said, is there a motion that we approve policy 1310 4002? Parental involvement, 3210, parental inspection of and objection to instructional materials. 3540, comprehensive health education program. 4335, criminal behavior. 4720, surveys of students. 6120, student health services. And 7300, staff responsibility. That we recommend to the full board approval of these policies for first read. Is there a motion for that? Okay. Well, approval to the full board, but we always have it as first read. Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we recommend to the full board approval of the policies previously listed. Are there any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Then we will recommend to the full board, these, approval of these policies and lay on the table 30 days.
And I can ask for one clarifying point, Madam Chair, would that be to move on both the NCSBA versions and the 3 separate policies for the full board?
Yes. Is there anything else to claim the attention of the policy committee? If not, I declare the committee meeting adjourned. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Fuller. Next, committee that will be presenting, the next committee that will be presenting, excuse me, is the Student Support Services and Operations Committee, Mr. Edwards.
Welcome everyone to the Student Support Services Operations Committee meeting. I'd like to take roll call. Dr. Chavis,
Here.
Ricky Jenkins, here. Dr. Washington,
Here.
Evelyn Bullock.
Here.
Next, I need the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Got a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Minutes were approved. So at this time, I'd like to call Dr. Farrow up and introduce our speakers for the law enforcement SRO program.
Good evening, everyone. We have with us from the Nash County Sheriff Department, Sheriff Stone and his team, and we have Chief Winstead from the Nashville Police Department. We're going to ask Chief Winstead to come first. He's going to speak to us about the SRO at National Elementary School. This goes back to our last committee meeting where we had Chief Winstead, who spoke about his wish to have a SRO at Nashville Elementary. The board directed us to ask both law enforcement agencies to come and speak at the same time. So that's why we're here today. So we'll begin with Chief Winstead.
Thank y'all for allowing me to come speak tonight. I first like to address, also, I'm sorry, Mayor Brown is here with me this evening. She's our mayor, and she also used to sit on the board here when she years ago. First, I'd like to address, I don't know, I'm gonna call it a dirty rumor that got out in town or throughout the county. That the last time that I came and spoke here, that me and Sheriff Stone don't like each other or that I'm going against him. That is not the case. Not only is Sheriff Stone a close personal friend, but he is a big mentor to me. And anytime that I need help and guidance of trying to do my job in town or anywhere else, he's always a phone call away to give me advice to help me with that. So I just wanted to clear the air on that because like I said, after my last meeting here, some things came out and I just wanted to address that. So that it ain't, it's not true. So, like I said, thank you for letting me be here. This all started about a year ago, once y'all got the grant. And what it comes down to is, myself and Sheriff Stone care deeply about our communities and our county, and he feels his office will provide the best service, and I feel that my department will provide the best service for the town of Nashville. So that's why we're here going against it, and it's been a year-long battle. So things that the Nashville PD officer can offer to the town, I mean, to this elementary school. Prior to my administration here, not only did I start it, but every chief before me, we handle traffic. Not only do we handle traffic in the daytime and in the morning, it's always there, no matter when. We work with the school system and the school, Nashville Elementary, that we made a one-way street during certain times, so Virginia Street can be more compatible to get the amount of students that are car riders on the street. Just this past year, we worked with Mr. Mano and Ms. Denton. Sorry, last school year. We got speed bumps because there was a big traffic deal and people speeding, so we worked with each other, and the town put speed bumps in on Virginia Street to help slow stuff down. On top of that, at the time, I had 2 people that were already certified by the state of North Carolina to be SROs. Currently, I have 1 person that's still on staff that is certified by the state of North Carolina. By the way that works is the state of North Carolina is governing body over everybody through the North Carolina Justice Academy. Whether it's the Nash County Sheriff's Office, Nashville PD, Rocky Mountain Police Department. If it's a certification, the state of North Carolina is housed through the Justice Academy, so it doesn't matter which law enforcement agency, it's a certified branch throughout. So I don't know if that was a question or a concern, but it's all certified through one Justice Academy for the state of North Carolina. Also on staff, our person that is certified through the state already is also certified through an alert system. That is an active shooter, a rapid deployment. It's just another technique that is utilized other than rapid deployment, which the state of North Carolina teaches. On top of that, I'm also a certified instructor for the state of North Carolina through the Justice Academy and the community college to teach response to active shooter, whatever. We just last week demonstrated with the school, one of their 3 that they have to do without the year with law enforcement, a lockdown drill. We also, the sheriff's office was there as well as that participated. So we do it jointly together. So it's not I don't want the school to be treated like it's a toy in a sandbox and both of us are fighting over who's going to get the toy. I believe that my department can provide the best services to the elementary school and the staff and the faculty, just like the sheriff believes he's got the best assets and resources to do it. So that's my spiel. For any questions on that? Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And so,
Thank y'all for allowing me to come up and talk about the school board. My opinion of the school board is, before we get into some things we just enacted, we need to work with these county commissioners to get law enforcement in every one of these schools. You can do what you want to out here and have the prettiest aesthetics, but to make the difference and to keep the school safe, we need to have a law enforcement officer. And the reason I say that is building these kids today, not only for safety, but for future, so that there is a companionship between law enforcement and these kids coming up, because a lot of these kids are not getting this at home. With that, obviously, money is an issue at this time. However, I've got with my staff, and I know Nashville is wanting a law enforcement officer in the school. We're gonna put one in the school, Chris Jones. We've just hired him. He's been an law enforcement officer before, and we'll put him over there. I want to work with the board
to get it in every school. And as this demerger goes along, the vision is it's a Nash County school. Nash County needs to be in every one of these schools. Most active shooters across America is 12 minutes. That's from the time they pull a gun out until the end of the situation. Communications usually takes 5 minutes for a phone call to come in. One reason that Nash County needs to be over this program is because you don't need to be switching channels, calling a local police department or any other one when it's Nash County Communications. You've got 60 officers out here working and everybody's got them. You don't need to be switching channels. Now you can simulcast and do things of that nature. But the other issue is, and I've just seen it with this gun that was in the school system in Rocky Mount. A lot of times there's different friends in different schools, whether it's in a city school or a county school. And when something happens in one of these schools, it bleeds over into another one. You need one clearinghouse to handle those situations. You don't need to be calling Rocky Mount Police Department, Nash County Sheriff's Office, and Nashville PD, because everybody works under different policy procedures. They have different ways that they do response. Only to be fair to Dr. Ellis, he needs one person to pick the phone up and call, and then go from there. With the Nash School Board, we can handle that problem. We can start at mid-October and put somebody in the school and they'll be there. But I urge you to get with these county commissioners and let's get one in every school. I'm a big proponent of safer schools across America. And that's one of the things that they're saying is put them in every school. Because today, the school resource officer is not just a model walking around. They have to be very prepared. And it's probably the officer that is under the most scrutiny that comes about today. They have to have the best communication skills, best interaction skills, and the ability to respond when something happens. And Chief had just mentioned something, and I appreciate everything he's doing for the schools. But the last thing you need is a law enforcement officer supposed to be protecting the school, and we're directing traffic. But the simple fact is, if somebody's going to commit a horrific event, and they're watching that law enforcement every day, they just don't wake up and say, we're going to do this. They plan it out very well. When would you plan on bringing that gun, or when you're going to do something? Obviously, when he's out here directing traffic. I'm totally against the SRO directing traffic. I think that SRO needs to be in the school. Now, you get caught up with it, but at the end of the day, if they can direct traffic there, that is well and good, and I welcome that. But you need an SRO in the school, and I think that's a great partnership. So that's my spiel of where I am. If you want to ask anything, I'm here. Somebody's got to have something. Yes, ma'am.
You spoke about Nash County covering all of the schools.
That is correct.
What would be the arrival time if, God forbid, that something were to happen in one of the schools within the city limits of Rocky Mount? How quickly could you get
And officers there.
an officer there or officers there to have the SRO officer that's already there?
Right. Well, here's the issue. You never know. It's immeasurable because you don't know where officers are every minute. And that's the reason that these schools have to, I've been a big proponent of videos inside of these schools. I spoke of it way back, schools that stop a lot of bullying. If you have video cameras with real time in there, the most proactive approach that you can take is a video of that school where it can be downloaded so you know where that active shooter is exactly and when, instead of hearing gunshots ring out or whatever, or somebody make phone calls or something. Video enhances that in the response, because not only is it the response of the officer pulling up, getting out of the vehicle and proceeding to the fight. A lot of it is finding out where to go when they get into it. So, you know, it's immeasurable. I can't tell you the exact amount of time, but I can tell you statistics show 12 minutes. And that's why this officer has to be well prepared. They have to be well trained. And that is not every officer in the street have those capabilities. And we've got to pick the best of the best to put into those areas, and they've got to be highly trained. So, you know, that's just something we need to look at. And I'm telling you now, the money needs to be spent in protecting our kids in Nash County. And I don't think there's another resource in the state of North Carolina or in Nash County that is above and beyond our children.
Question.
Bill, thanks first, and I'll get you.
Thank you.
Chair, thank you for coming and speaking. I guess my understanding of all this always was, or I guess specific to Nashville, is that they have the financial and I guess officer resources to put a person there for the entire school day. Sheriff Department is splitting that, don't we? I mean, and have that person there. What you're presenting tonight, does that change?
It does, for the simple fact is we've had the SRO positions open because if you've seen me back and forth with commissioners of the pay, you know, our pay is not where it belongs, and we've got 15 openings right now. And we're starting to get people in, but not only, okay, I can get these people in the door, these younger officers in the door, but the main thing is keeping these people after we send them to all this training, just as Chief just said, you got to maintain that force, and pay means a lot. So what has changed is I was lucky enough to obtain one from the Highway Patrol that has extensive training in the most premier SWAT team in North Carolina, the Rapid Response Team in North Carolina Highway Patrol. He's come and work with us. And also I have an officer that had left and now he's coming back. So we're being able to start filling some of those positions that we were awarded. Because the board that we had when we were putting it in there, we were having difficulty with it, and by the grace of God, we've got 2 coming in, and hopefully that we can get these other situations straightened out and get more coming in.
Mr. Sharp? Bill, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead with your question.
All right. First of all, let me just say, Sheriff Stone, thank you for coming out and sharing the information with this board. I know you have been diligently working with the county commissioners too. I agree. We need SROs in all of our schools. And I know you've been working towards that end. How's that communication going with you and commission regarding that? And the other piece of it, I think is vitally important that we have a straight line, direct communications. One of the things that you always want to do when you're looking at things of this nature is not first, second, third party, but direct party communications. So first of all, again, thank you. And what's going on with you and the county as far as getting more resource funds for resource officers?
Did somebody understand what he just said?
So, Sheriff, he asked you what's going on between you and the county manager, and how are you coming across more money to the salaries of these SRs?
We're in negotiations, and that's the reason I need your help and every person in Nash County. If you want qualified law enforcement, you want law enforcement officers that have the ability to de-escalate, communicate, and be able to present cases in court and be professional law enforcement officers, it takes pay. And when you've got allied agencies making $25,000 more starting than your officer does, it makes it very difficult. But as I reiterate again, we are in a negotiations at this time, and hopefully Nash County will see, hey, you've got to pay for good professionalism.
Yeah, I'm sorry you couldn't hear me. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you perfect.
Awesome. So I started out by saying we want to thank you for what you're doing. I know you've been working with the county commission. I know you've been laboring really hard trying to get that money and funding for our school systems, and how much support that you give to not just Nash County, but also supporting with the Rocky Mount City Police and the collaboration with that. So I just want to say thank you for that, and continue to work, because we really need every police officer or sheriff, deputy sheriff in every one of our schools. And I know that's vitally important, especially this day and age.
Well, I'm a proponent of that, and between this board, the people of Nash County, you're the one that'll decide that.
Mr. Sharp, are you good now? Good enough.
Chris, go ahead.
Chair, just wanted to echo Mr. Dunn and clarify, I don't know if you answered that, so I may have missed. So hiring Chris Jones as an officer, you hired him, but will he be at that school 5 days a week?
He will be there 5 days a week and he should start about the 15th or 18th of October. And y'all know the ripple effect of this, every other school wants it. And I am a proponent of that, and I think that this needs to be in negotiations with the county. Putting one in every school.
And I guess that was the second part. Now that you've done this, you've set a precedent. But my phone's gonna start ringing. When am I gonna get it full time? So, and we knew that coming in. Are you prepared for that, or you have a possible?
I've been prepared for it, and my vision is you pay competitive salaries. And you'll get law enforcement officers, you'll get law enforcement officers that will stay. And I'm sure Captain Edwards with Goldsboro, you're running the same problem. If you don't pay law enforcement officers, you don't have those issues. Any other issues? Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mr. Lamb, go ahead.
How many schools are currently sharing this?
All of our elementary schools. Yes.
Are there any days that somebody does not have the SR for one reason or another?
So right now with our elementary schools on the county end, because they're still, you heard Sheriff Stone explain, he's still working through trying to get individuals hired. What we have continued with is a process that we had last school year, which is where we have off-duty officers who volunteer, well, not volunteer, they get paid, but they come in on their off time to serve as part-time SROs. And so they sign up for the time slots. So the time slots are broken up approximately around, I want to say 7:30 to 11 or so. They're at one school, and then from 11:30 to 3:30 or so they're at another school. And so those are the time slots that they sign up for. Because if you all remember, when we wrote the school safety grant, asking for 4 SROs, 8 SROs. 4 of those would be on the county end, 4 of those would be in the city of Rocky Mount. And 1 SRO would serve 2 schools. That's what we wrote our school safety grant for.
I'd just like to make a statement. I appreciate both law enforcement agencies. I go back where we had a private security firm. It was not very helpful at all. We were scared of our children. Question I have. If we vote on this October 2nd, who should start October 3rd at night?
So there are some, and Mr. Weber, you may need to jump in here, but there's one thing at least I would want to caution you about, and that is that we currently have an MOU with the sheriff department. So before we can move forward, the board would have to address that issue. Yes, ma'am.
Over this past year, we've had this conversation several times. This board has already voted to retain the Nash County Sheriff's Office. And as you just stated, we have an MOU to that intent. My question is, how many times will this board have this very same discussion? Will we continue to have this discussion until we change our minds? I really, my goal and what I want for our children is safety. But I don't think we need to keep revisiting the same issue. There are other things we need to be dealing with rather than going over the same question, the same issue every couple of months until the vote changes. My vote's not gonna change, y'all, because I think we got the right setup now. So I'm tired. When are we going to end this going back and forth, back and forth? I thought when we made a vote, that was the end of that discussion until something changed. Nothing's changed. So what are we doing, y'all? I'm tired. I don't know about anybody else, but everyone bullock is tired.
Are there any other questions or comments? I'm going to speak. And Sheriff, Chief, please neither one of you get mad. Love both of you, but I'm just going to lay out some facts that I've noticed from both of your speeches. First off, we did have a response to Rocky Mount PD last week. So be that as it may, we did have to call a separate agency in other than the sheriff's department to help with a gun incident. And it seemed to work rather nice. I didn't see or hear of any issues with Rocky Mount PD's response. Unless y'all have something that you haven't told us. Second off, comm center. If you are to call somebody in an emergency for anything that happens in Nashville or Nash County, it goes to the same comm center. It's just one. SRO training. All the SROs are trained by the same people. They've got to go through mandatory training. It's one set training, no matter what agency it is. It's one set thing, and you've got to have it every year. It's got to be done before December 8th. And this is my big part. And this is the part that does change a little. And so the piece to it is that we are getting more and more calls dealing with crisis in schools. And is there any disagreements to that? Sheriff, any disagreements that we're focusing more and more on schools nationwide? So I would dare say that it's the board's responsibility to protect the children as much as possible. By the sheriff reaching out and finding funds, I think is amazing that he has been able to get Chris Jones not only funded, but named and housed and ready to go into a school. And if Chief here in Nashville, which is local, he's there, that cuts response times. So we have a situation like we would in Rocky Mount. Chief Winstead already has a person staffed here. If the sheriff was able to take Chris and put him somewhere else other than Nashville, then we're getting more bang for our money. It's a return on investment. It's a business decision. It's a smart decision. It's putting more police personnel out into our schools. And it's just like the sheriff said, and it's just like what Chris. When am I going to get? Well, right now we have the opportunity to put two out there, not just one. We have that opportunity. I got kids in these schools. Y'all had kids in these schools or loved ones that worked in these schools. I know that if I can move these people and get more out there now, I would want to do this. And I think it's high time we do that. So that to me, Ms. Bullock, is the change. It makes a good, concerned decision for all the children that we got. He can move from Nashville to Clippers or wherever the data says that we're having more troubles, more influx in population, whatever. Come up with a decision to move a full-time somewhere else. But we have that opportunity now. so that we got one for Nashville, and then we can put Chris Jones into another school that the sheriff so obliges. But we have that opportunity.
Mr. Mathis, of course. I was not going to respond to your comment initially, simply because I believe each one of us has the right to express ourselves. So I was not gonna say anything, but since you called my name, I am going to say this. We have an MOU with Nash County Sheriff's Department. Are we saying then that it's okay, we got the MOU, and we did it in good faith. But we can change that MOU because we've got somebody else that we want in there. I don't follow that logic. And why would we want to have two SROs at Nashville
You would-
Elementary? But then what you're proposing is that we forget the MOU that we have with Nash County for our schools in Nash County. And go into another MOU with Nashville, the city of Nashville, for them to do only Nashville Elementary, and then Chris or John, or whoever else that might be assigned to Nashville Elementary can go anywhere else, but we want the city of Nashville to do Nash County. That does not make a whole lot of sense to me.
What you're saying doesn't make sense to me either.
Well, then we're on different pages. and-
Yeah, because-
and I don't agree with you.
So I put,
And I'm
we can say Nashville PD goes to Nashville Elementary. It's inside their city. And then the Nash County Sheriff's Department can take their deputy who would have had been assigned to Nashville Elementary and move them out to the county somewhere, providing more protection to our kids.
So then I say, the MOU that we have with Nash County means nothing. We'll change at will. That's not being very wise at all, Mr.
I'll write the MOU if that's what you're worried.
I'm not, no, please don't.
I'll be glad.
It's not for people.
Okay.
So.
Well, I'm just all for
I think
protecting more
it's
children. Well, if you're not willing to do that for the children, then that's on you.
Please don't do that.
I just,
Don't ever, and then I'm going to be quiet because I don't like personal attack.
It's not personal.
Wait a minute, I did not attack you. Don't ever say to me again that I am not thinking about the safety of the children. You don't know me that well. And anybody who has ever known me these years that I've been on the board, the children have always been my first priority. So please don't ever say those words to me again, Ms. Davis. And yes, sir, I don't like it. And I will not tolerate anybody questioning whether I am in favor of doing what is best for our children, whether I agree with you or not. Please don't do that again.
I understand your thoughts, but the MOU
Thank you.
versus the children, that piece of paper versus a child's life,
Don't do it, Ms. Davis.
I just
Don't
did.
do that.
Are there any questions anymore?
So Dr. Ellis, for full transparency, I think there are some facts that need to be put on the table. The MOU is a legal and binding agreement. And if something is going to change outside of the current MOU, then the board would have to address that for that to happen. The second thing is with our SROs and how we have them set up through the safety grant. It's important for us to remember that when we wrote this grant, we wrote the grant for one officer to serve 2 schools. Because that was the money that we had. So if we put a full-time officer at Nashville and we don't put a full-time officer at these other schools, that is where the inequity lies. As we currently have the situation set up, Nashville, Cooper, they share an SRO. Middlesex, Bailey, they share an SRO. MD Hubbard and Red Oak, they share an SRO. Spring Hope has an SRO. If that SRO goes to Spring Hope in the morning, in the afternoon, that SRO would travel to another school on that day who does not have an officer that afternoon. And then the next day, if they go to Spring Hope in the afternoon, then in the morning, they would go to an elementary school that doesn't have an SRO. And that rotation keeps happening. That way, we are providing equitable resources to all of our schools.
Make sure you present that since it's out in the public, that those are rotating and we don't know if that's a Monday morning or Monday afternoon. And it's always switching. That way it's for safety purposes.
So the only question I'm gonna have, so, we talked about this, what do you want to do?
Question.
I don't know if this, I know this is information, we brought it up, I think.
Oh,
We just want to know what we need to do.
What's your question?
So, I'm sorry, I'm not there again, but this is just for information only, correct? So when is our MOU up?
At the end of this school year, June 30th.
So why don't we reconvene at the end of the school year? We can bring this out again if we want to vote on something different. We just stick with what we got now. As Ms. Bullock said, we already got an MOU out there and it's a legal binding document. And so we need to stay the course. And at the end of next school year, if we want to revisit it, we can revisit it. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right, and the next section is for transportation.
Good evening, board. So I want to share a little bit of the past. Back in 2018, transportation had 120 full-time drivers, 20 part-time drivers, and 394 drivers that work for Nash County Public Schools. The sub-drivers, we had 60 of them. At this time, we have 107 full-time drivers, 10 part-time drivers, and 12 sub-drivers. The sub-drivers is the biggest thing. So when you have a driver out, we don't have anyone to call anymore. Right now, we have a little bit over 200 drivers with a Class B CDL working for the school system. And that includes coaches, teachers, there's some principals, you name it, people that have the license out there. But all of them aren't sub drivers, you know, coaches, they're just driving for their activities, and teachers, principals, there's some principals that drive every day on a sub driver. But so that's what we look like from 18 to now. So everybody has a clear picture of what we're going through. September bus class, we had 43 individuals to sign up for the bus class, and there was 13 of them that already had to reschedule because of different reasons. So the total number of students in bus class on Monday was 30 students. out of the 30 students, 24 of them passed bus class. That's amazing. It was over an 81% passing rate. And our DMV officer said that it was a pretty good rate. The 6 who didn't pass the first time, they have one more try. Well, they retook the test on Thursday. They failed again, so they have one more try before they have to retake the actual part of the test. The test consists of, the testing consists of 4 different parts. And they only failed the 1 or 2 parts. So they would have to take maybe 1 or 2 classroom, the part for the classroom over. They don't have to take the whole classroom part of it. All right. So we have 4 drivers that need a fast track of CDL, and fast tracks meaning that they already had their Class B license, Class A license, or either both, and all they need is the S&P. S&P is school bus, and the P is for passenger on their license. Usually, you could go down there and get an endorsement from DMV, but the state recommends and actually not recommends, but actually requires you to go through a 1 to 2 day driving, behind the wheel driving, just to make sure that you know what you're doing. So these fast track individuals, I talked to the DMV officer and I said, okay, how long will these fast track drivers take to get their license? They're gonna do the fast tracks first, of course, and they should have them within 30 days from the time they pass their license. They have to, once they pass the class, they have to go to the get a DOT medical card. And then once they do the DOT medical card, they have to do a drug test. So, you know, scheduling them and getting them done, it's probably a week. And then the driving part is going to be two days. So they should have them within 30 days. The DMV will start behind the wheel training for the rest of the drivers. And this is where it's, you know, it gets kind of crazy. But they said they want to put 2 trainers here and do 4 drivers a month. And I told him, I said, that's not good enough. I said, you're talking about 22 drivers that need behind the wheel training. You're talking about it's going to take between 5 to 6 months just to finish these ones that we have already available for their Class B license. But of course, if everyone watches the news, it's every county is the same situation that we're in, you know, and the DMVs are there and they can't pull them away from different, you know, Wade County, Chatham County, that's all you hear, that they're short on bus drivers. Unfortunately, the DMV shares the trainers for a different county. So we are shared with Halifax County. I spoke to Halifax. They had a class right before Jerry retired. And they only have a class about every 3 months. They're not as big as that. Our classes, we need to have a class every 30 days. We have a total of 43 other individuals right now that need the bus class, the classroom parts. But Fred Garner told me there's no need to give this class until we get all the behind the wheel training done. So he expects me to hold somebody who applied for Nash County as a bus driver and tell him you won't get paid for 6 months because we don't have another class for 6 months. And we can't do that. There's no way world we could do that. So I reached out to Fred again. He gave me a list of stuff today of what he could do, but I need your help, Fred. I know you talked last week with me, but we're gonna need your help to get this fast track, everybody fast track. Nash County today. Nash County today, as of today, we have 6,093 regular students routed on 79 buses. We have 284 EC students routed on 23 buses. All right. 26 of the 79 buses are doing 3 runs in the morning and 3 runs in the afternoon. I shared the percentage of late in the afternoon and morning with Dr. Ellis. You know, the first week of school, we had 49% of our buses late in the morning and 68% of the buses late in the afternoon. It got a little bit better since then, and it's not because we gained more drivers, is the drivers got familiar. You know, they're more efficient on their routes, so they could get them there on time better. But student count is important for buses. Miss Morris and Mr. Leonard started having one-on-one conversations with the drivers. They schedule a meeting 3 or 4 a day. And they go through and tell the drivers are telling them what students that are not riding. So we're actually removing students now. After 10 days, if a student has drove the bus for 10 days, we remove them from the bus. We're passing that information on to the bus coordinators at the schools to make sure that they don't add them back. And we're not like in a virtuous circle of adding and removing. Starting today, the TD10 report was emailed out to all the assistant principals. The TD10 report is a report to count every student's head count of every student on the bus in the morning and AM, AM and PM for 5 days straight. We're going to take the average number of students for that week that are riding. So riding, say, bus 120. We're going to take the average and we're going to send this report to the state afterwards. This report affects the budget for next year in transportation. So it's important to have the TD10 accurate and correct. Let me talk to you about a routing process. So our routing process in the past, well, this year, I really wasn't here long enough to change it, but transportation removes all students off of standard routes and bus stops every year. They've been doing it for the last few years, right? So when they set a deadline for the parents to fill out bus information, and we give the parents a deadline. Well, the deadline was made August 18th, and school started the 28th. And then the next week we had Memorial Day, right? For Labor Day. Was it Labor Day? September, yeah, Labor Day. So we only had 4.5 days to get 7,000 students on the bus. Everybody in transportation, Miss Morris, Mr. Leonard, Lori, and Joey, we all went through a routing class. So we're all working on trying to add students to the bus, but we're not as efficient as Lori is. Lori could route, 100 students compared to 3 of us routing 20 students. So it's a process, but everybody down there is learning. Hopefully we're going to be a whole lot better next year. But this is what I'm proposing for next year. So next year we have 7,000 7,500 students that are riding the bus. Leave the 7,500 students on the bus, on the same bus stop, on the same bus, but just remove the graduated students, the ones that graduated from going from 5th to 6th, and then 8th to 9th, and then actually the 12th graders, removing them. We're guessing it'd probably be about 1,200 students. 40, 50% of that, maybe 600, 700 students we might have to route. And we could route, 700 students within days rather than weeks. So next year, the teachers, of course, will get their information a whole lot sooner. Whole lot less phone calls. And I already spoke to bus planner or routing program, and they said that it will work. And that's what a lot of them do. So that's my goal for next year. Communication, transportation communication, right? So if a driver calls out in the morning, we communicate to the parents and the schools if we don't have a bus. Or if we have another bus that's covering a certain part of that bus. Say if we have one that calls out at Southern Nash, and that's bus driver does Southern Nash High, Southern Nash Middle, and say Middlesex. If they call out, we're going to communicate to all the parents for all 3 schools and all 3 schools. Now, if we have a driver take one of the runs, we're going to once again communicate out to the school itself to make sure everyone's on the bus or knows that the bus is not coming. So any other time, the communication to the parents would be done by the bus. Bus coordinators know if a driver calls out or schedules to be out, the bus coordinator will communicate that with the parents. The only reason why we communicate it in the morning is because we're at work the earliest. And I think it's important that we get the communication out the earliest possible to the parents. On new bus updates, 13 new buses are coming, right? Well, we got 7 out of 13 buses, about 4 weeks ago. We're down buses. I want these new buses on the road yesterday, but of course, we're in the process of getting the GPSs, the radios, tablets, everything, hooked up and ready to go. Something that I looked into for next year is having one provider for all 3. So I call one person, because you imagine trying to schedule 3 different companies for 7 different buses, and it's not like it's everybody in North Carolina got their buses at the same time. So they're all over the state working on buses and trying to get everybody here, not at the same time, but a good time so we could get these buses on the road. It's been a headache. But hopefully by Monday, we're going to have 4 out of the 7 on the road. That's going to help out a lot. Any questions? I hope I helped answer a lot of them. I know you're eager to hear about the bus class. Ms. Davis.
Say thank you.
Gotcha.
Because your job was not easy, and it is a very difficult time to be facing what we're facing. And I appreciate your department and your help. And I don't want to do that.
These 2 men right here tell me this every day. They appreciate what I do every day.
I think
Because they don't want it, that's why.
You ain't told a lot about that.
Any other questions or comments? I'll kind of allude to what he was talking about is
We've had a problem last year. We got a problem this year. We can't sit still. We can't think the problem's gonna fix itself. So I have reached out to some friends with DMV. I have reached out to some friends in the legislature, made a trip to Raleigh last week. So while I was there, I took one hat off, put another hat on and knocked on some doors. And just basically said, what we're doing is not working. We've done everything that the state has asked us to do. We've got people in the bullpen ready to go. But the state just don't have work. They just don't have trained people. So my suggestion to them, and I think I've got some talk amongst the hallways is, if you don't have the people, you gotta go out and get creative. You gotta find some people. So I've thrown out some ideas, suggestions about local, some alternate training things that the state can fund. And I didn't get the word no. I got that's very interesting. I like that concept. So the ball's rolling. Won't happen next week. But at least we're doing something, and whatever we come up with, my goal is to fix it. If we fix it for us, we're gonna fix it for the entire state. So I want Nash County to be the one that says, wow, look what we did for North Carolina. And we're working on that. So as I hear back, I'll keep you guys posted, but there's nothing right now set in stone other than they're listening. That's, they get Raleigh to listen, you've done something. So
Yeah. So I talked to Fred last week when he was here, and I said, Fred, why don't we have some good drivers? We have some good bus drivers that have been here for a long time. I said, why don't we get them to be trainers, sub-trainers? And you know what he told me? He said, it's in the works. So I don't know, this year, next year, 5 years from now. But they're gonna get sub-trainers. That's what they get, sub-trainers. You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments? Anything else for good of the board? Thanks, sir. If there's any other questions or comments, or should I say, if there's no more, I'd like to go ahead and adjourn this committee and roll to the next.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. The last committee meeting for this evening will be the Academic Services and Accountability Committee meeting. Ms. Thomas Bullock.
Good evening. So now we'll call the Academic Services and Accountability Committee to order. I'll begin with roll call. Mr. Franklin Lamb.
Here.
Dr. LaShonda Washington.
Here.
Mr. Zach Gray.
Here.
Mr. Chris Bissett.
Here.
Okay, and I am here, so a quorum is established. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the September 7th meeting.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from September 7th, 2023. Is there any question or discussion? No? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Okay, thank you. So today we have two items on the agenda. The first, field trips with Mr. White, followed by the CTE Comprehensive Local Needs Assessment with Mr. Thompson. So I'll turn it over now to Mr. White.
Good evening, board. I have one field trip overnight out of state from Southern Nash. 12 students, and they do have the right chaperone ratio with one male, one female. And the superintendent is asking for approval for this field trip. It's an FFA field trip.
Second.
Make a motion to approve the field trip.
Second.
Okay, so it's been properly moved. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. I could hear mumbling. It's been moved and seconded. So I will take a roll call vote. Mr. Lamb?
Yes.
Dr. Washington?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Bissett?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so it is approved to go before the full board. All right, so we'll move right along to Mr. Thompson.
Good evening, board.
Good evening.
So tonight I want to present to you the comprehensive local needs assessment. This is for information. So each 2 years, we have to complete a comprehensive local needs assessment for career and technical education. The why behind this is that it basically it's a process that allows us the opportunity to take an in-depth look at the entire CTE system and identify areas where targeted improvements can lead to increased opportunities for student success. And then it also engages our stakeholders in a common understanding and vision for the future of the CTE program in Nash County. And so basically, this is a pretty much overall assessment of what we need with the CTE program, what programs, what pathways, what's working, what's not working. So we will be involving a lot of stakeholders, which you'll see in just a second. I wanted to share with you the components of the CLNA. So in section 1 is the evaluation of performance. Basically what this is it will be our performance on our assessments from the previous years. How well we did on those will be a part of the CLNA component. The second section will be labor market alignment. So for instance, around us in the region and local, are our pathways aligned with what business and industry needs at this time? Are we teaching those pathways to prepare our students to move forward into careers related in our area? The next is the largest section. It's the size, scope, and quality of the programs. Here it basically talks about how well are our programs working, what's pretty much the scope of our programs, what we're trying to achieve, what's the quality of those programs. Also in the CLNA, you will see that it talks through career pathway implementation. So pretty much how do we implement those pathways? What do we do to actually recruit students? What do we do to market pathways? And how do our students, parents, and our community know about this? The fifth section is, which is very important at this day and time, is recruitment, retention, and training of CTE educators. So what do we do to recruit teachers? What do we do to retain those teachers? And what kind of training do we do to ensure that they stay with us? And then the last section is equal access to high quality CTE programs for all students. And when they say all, that means all students that we have in our district. The next slide I want to share with you is an example of the matrix that was used. For example, this is labor market alignment. So you can see there's questions that are asked, and those are the types of questions that run through the whole CLNA on each of these sections of, for example, what industries are projected to grow in this local area? What occupations? So you can see those questions. And then what we have to do is do a rating of ourselves in the next section. And then each section under that has what consultation method did you use? Meaning, who did we talk to find out this information? What identified needs did we find out in each of these sections? And along with that, there is a particular required set of stakeholders that we must talk to, whether it's with the survey, whether it's with focus groups. So you can see we must talk to representatives in the secondary and post-secondary levels, including teachers, faculty, administrators, career guidance. We must talk to state and local workforce development boards, representatives from a range of local businesses and industry, parents, students, representatives of special populations, agencies that serve our at-risk and homeless and out of youth groups. And then if this is a large subgroup in our area, representatives around the Indian tribes and the tribal organizations here. Lastly, I wanted to share with you, this is a timeline that we have in Nash County for our CLNA. So in August, we are pretty much building the CLNA leadership team and meeting. We'll come back, and what we're doing right now in September is we're coming up with feedback collection methodology. That means we're going to do surveys, we're going to do focus groups, and so on. In October and November, we will run those groups and collect that feedback for the CLNA. Compiles in January, December, January, compile the CLNA data. And then lastly, in February, is complete the whole CLNA document. And we plan to be finished up with the whole process by March the 15th, 2024, which is, of course, the deadline when we must turn this in and be ready to go. So I want to entertain any questions at this time. This is for information only. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? Okay, I just wanted to add, thank you so much. Oh.
Ms. Bullock,
Go
I
ahead.
got a question for Mr. Thompson.
Yes, sir.
Chad, you couldn't get away too fast, could you?
I know. I said I had a reverse.
How
can I help?
First of all, let me say, I really appreciate what you guys are doing for the CTE program. And you know how strongly we feel regarding that program. One of the challenges that I'm seeing in the private sector is, what are you guys doing to develop soft skill sets for people coming out into the workplace? Because I'm finding that to be a great challenge. Do we have anything planned for that? Are we doing workshops, seminars, or whatever? How are we addressing that issue?
So there's a couple of things, of course, when we go out to business in the industry, that's what we hear mostly is soft skills. Students need to know how to communicate, teamwork, how to be at work on time. So we are, number one, some of our courses have that already embedded in it. So that's one thing that works with it. But we're in deep conversation right now here in our district about what we can do around maybe some courses, maybe some different things that specifically relate to soft skills and which are called essential skills now. We also are teaming with Nash Community and having conversations with them about building those soft skills and essential skills. So we are definitely on it. I was on an Economic Alliance meeting with Nash County. They stressed interest in that as well. So it is definitely something that's important and needed and what we're working on.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Welcome. Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Sharp, or anyone?
No, ma'am, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. And I was just thanking you, Mr. Thompson, for the work that you're doing. I attended the Twin Counties Education and Business Leaders Summit. And all of this was just a part of that, and the importance of, post-secondary training and certification and education, how we really can shift the future and moving forward in Nash County and for our students. So thank you so much for that. So at this time, I don't have any other questions or discussions, then we'll go ahead and adjourn.
No further business on this evening. Thank you, Ms. Thomas. I do declare our committee meetings adjourned. Have a great evening.